Dear colleagues and students, welcome to the 2021 academic year. I hope that most of you would have had a break over the Christmas and New Year period, and if you haven't, I hope you will very soon. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you, academics, clinicians, professional staff, and the students, back to the medical school, and particularly would like to welcome all new students and new staff to the school. But let me start off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I am on today, the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, and I pay my respects to the country and all its people. In this address, I want to describe the challenges and successes that we had last year and outline what we can expect from 2021 for the school, the college, and the university. But a few housekeeping things first. So there will be time for questions later in this session, either through raising your hand or asking a question, or please through the use of the Q&A button. Please mute your microphone for the duration of the forum, unless you are invited to ask a question. Use the raise your hand feature, as I just said. And after you've asked a question, please remute your microphone. And we are recording this event for those that have to leave early or for those that are unable to be here today. So there's no doubt that 2020 was a challenging year, not just for the school and the university, but for many of us and people around the world. The year in Australia started with devastating bushfires. Lives, flora and fauna, and properties were lost. The fires burnt an estimated 18.6 million hectares, that's 186 square kilometres, destroyed over 5,900 buildings and killed at least 34 people. Billions of animals were affected, and some endangered species are believed to be driven to extinction. Air quality dropped to hazardous levels in all southern and eastern states. And as of the 2nd of January 2020, NASA estimated that 306 million tonnes of CO2 had been emitted. The health, financial and personal cost of dealing with the bushfires is large, and we still see the effects of the fires in the affected regions and the hardship to people living in those beautiful areas of Australia. Our colleagues at the coast had to not just look after their own safety and that of their family and friends, some of them lost houses, but continued to look after patients, many of whom were trapped in those areas and were rather unwell. Then a devastating hailstorm in Canberra, lasting all of 15 minutes, damaged 45,000 cars, houses, trees, and research facilities at ANU. The result was not just a financial cost, but also a loss of years of research. And if that wasn't enough, a new virus named COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 was infecting people in China and made its way around the world within a few weeks. By this week, it's estimated that COVID-19 has infected 101 million people and killed close to 2.2 million people. As a result of our government, having excellent medical and scientific advice, Australia has been relatively spared with only 28,800 cases. But we mourn the 909 people that died as a result of COVID-19. At ANU, the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Brian Schmidt, reacted rapidly to the pandemic. On the 30th of March, the university was completely locked down. All teaching of the university was delivered online, and all research, except for that relating to COVID-19, stopped. The effects on the researchers and research students was devastating. Years of research and research funding was lost. The effects on staff and other students was also significant. Many students could not return from overseas, and staff had to deal with the unknown and yet continue the business of the university. Here at the medical school, a business continuity plan called Operation Graduate was written, and an executive group, the Operation Graduate Management Group, was formed by mid-March. We went to online learning on the 20th of March, paused all clinical placements by the 23rd of March, and activated Operation Graduate by the 23rd of March. These activities, as you know, were all led by Professor Imogen Mitchell, who was the director of the medical school at the time, before I stepped in to her shoes at the end of March. There was a graduate return to campus by June, July 2020, and by September, October last year, we were able to return to some face-to-face teaching. The medical school stayed in partial lockdown until this month, but through the dedication, flexibility, and hard work of the staff, the teaching and assessment were completed by the end of the year, and our Year 4 cohort graduated in December 2020. For us as a school, to get through this is a major feat, and was possible through clear, agreed, well-communicated guiding principles that underpinned everything that we did. And these were safety and care for and about each other, students and the patients we deal with, open and transparent communication, collaboration, contribution to the national effort of the broader community, maintenance of high standards for our graduates, and flexibility, open-mindedness, and importantly, learning from our mistakes. Our priorities: to graduate Year 4 MCHD students to practice medicine early in 2021, to enroll MCHD students in 2021, to plan for a curriculum in 2021, to track students and staff during Operation Graduate, and to communicate to staff and students were fulfilled. And although this was a crisis, a lot of good has come out of this crisis. We were able to communicate frequently, and we learned that meetings don't always have to be face-to-face. Planned curricular changes seemingly happened overnight. There were a range of educational innovations which were implemented very quickly. There were a range of research opportunities and studies on the results of the bushfires and COVID-19 from the medical school and the college. There was great liaison with and feedback from students, wonderful collaboration with other medical schools. We aimed for a common goal, and we learned to live with uncertainty. And I would again like to take this opportunity to express my thanks and gratitude to all of you, colleagues, students, to make this happen. Without your commitment, your collaboration, understanding, and ideas, we wouldn't have been able to achieve our goals. However, the effects of COVID-19 were not just on the physical or mental health for our colleagues, staff, students, families, and friends. The loss of revenue due to COVID-19, increased cost due to the bushfires, hail, and COVID-19 left a large gap at ANU between income and expenses, in excess of $200 million. A savings strategy implementing an expenditure control framework with strict monitoring of expenditure and new approval delegations and processes was put into practice. This resulted in some savings across the university last year. In addition, staff were offered voluntary early separation, and as you know, some of our colleagues have taken up this offer, leaving gaps in our teams. And although our school did not lose much income due to the loss of students, the saving strategy across the university resulted in much reduced funds available for us to do our business, and we had to do with a lot less money. But I'm happy to report that through everybody's efforts and a collaborative saving strategy, we achieved the nearly impossible, being on or slightly under the target set by the university for expenses in 2020. In addition to dealing with the pandemic and delivering our programs and courses, we did many other things. One of those was setting up a task force for the medical school for the future in August 2020 to outline the way forward for our medical school. A first task force led by Professor Imogen Mitchell, the director of the medical school, and Professor Ben Kenny from the University of Tasmania in 2019 outlined a vision for the school. The second task force, co-chaired by the Dean of the College, Professor Gruen, and me, described the distinctive curriculum and listed challenges as well as solutions to increase our research reputation. The distinctive curriculum was described as Medicine Plus, Medicine for Life, and Medicine in the World, and contains innovative ideas to make our education top class. A report has been submitted to the college and medical schools executive, and when it has been endorsed by those committees, I will distribute it further. At college level, the separation from the College of Science was nearly completed in 2020. The administration now has its own finance, HR, stakeholder engagement, marketing, and research management team. And Donnell Claudianis has now been appointed as the general manager for the college. Transform is the future strategy for health and medicine at ANU and for our college. It articulates a vision and an enduring mission that responds to the changing needs of the world. Our college seeks to serve the Australian nation by conducting research and tackling challenges facing the nation, providing lifelong learning education offerings that are co-designed with governments and healthcare providers, being a trusted confidant and contributor serving to strengthen Australia's health systems, and championing best practice in community engagement and empowerment. Key deliverables and milestones to achieve these aims will be addressed across 4 time periods called Horizons from 2020 to 2026 and beyond. And 3 ventures will drive the college's impact. The first being a Health Systems Institute that will influence the success of health and healthcare systems. Secondly, an education and leadership powerhouse which will create influential alumni, build reputation, and generate revenue. And thirdly, game-changing research frontiers that will shift paradigms and ensure global impact. The Transform vision that is available on the college website has been presented to the senior management group of ANU at the end of last year, and the next step is to develop a detailed business case in 2021. So what will this year bring? There's no doubt we learned a lot last year. We will use the experiences and learnings from last year to inform what we do this year. This will particularly be true for our teaching. We will continue to follow the business continuity plan, Operation Graduate, with its key functions, arrangements and procedures to be able to maintain the school's critical functions. We will continue to work in the contingency mode until the pandemic ends and business returns to normal. Teaching will be done in a hybrid model, where face-to-face teaching will be done in a safe environment for those sessions that cannot be delivered online. All other sessions, mainly lectures, will continue to be delivered online. We have to report to the Australian Medical Council, the MC, our accrediting body, on the changes that we made last year and how COVID affected our students. We made a lot of changes that are worth reporting and celebrating and are measuring the outcomes of these. And when we finalise the report, I will also make it available to all of you. However, as you may have seen in my previous email, we aim to return to work on campus for those that can, but will remain flexible. And if there are future outbreaks, we will return to the previous stages of working from home. You may also know that I will be the director for the next 11 months. And these next 11 months will be important for the medical school. And in this time, I believe we need to work on the following for the medical school. Firstly, to continue to work on our partnerships. These are our current international partnerships, but I believe that we have opportunities to build new partnerships with international and national organizations, whether they're universities or research organizations. We may be able to work with other universities to attract more international students in the future, and this may also allow future research collaborations. Closer to home, we need to finalise a memorandum of understanding with Canberra Health Services to provide a framework for enhanced collaboration. You may have heard that ANU is working on an MOU with Calvary Healthcare, offering opportunities not just for collaboration in education, but also in research and health policy. In addition, as Professor Grun's blog just before Christmas, an MOU with the Adventist Healthcare Limited, operating the Sydney Adventist Hospital, the SAN, was signed. This MOU describes the intent of the SAN and ANU to establish a partnership in healthcare education, research, and broader aspects of health system development. The next step is a task force that has started to meet with members from the SAN as well as the college to consider how these priorities can best be achieved. From our school, Dr. Nick Taylor, Associate Dean of Phase 2, as well as Professor Michael Peake, Obstetrician and Associate Dean of the college, are members of the task force, with Professor Peake co-chairing the task force. Secondly, we need to continue to delineate the medical school for the future as described previously. To do this, the future work of Medicine Plus, Medicine in the World and Medicine for Life are about defining the core and plus components, reviewing the current curriculum, exploring potential supported pathways for students to define additional degree pathways, liaising with other working groups, the Academy of Clinical Leadership, other schools and colleges and the AMC or other external bodies, doing market research, consultation and testing of ideas, and developing a budget. This work also includes working on solutions to increase our research output and reputation. That work will be led by the ANU Medical School Research Committee in collaboration with the College Research Committee, both chaired by Professor Chris Nolan. Collaborative proposals, I'm sure, will be devised in collaboration with external partners and presented to the ANU Medical School and College Executive. Thirdly, we need to enhance our student supports. It has become quite evident over the last few years, and particularly in the last year, that unwanted behaviours, whether they're from university or health staff or students, are affecting students' well-being and their ability to become doctors. Data on bullying and harassment over the last few years, whether this behaviour is experienced or witnessed by medical students, shows no improvement. In addition, last year was challenging for many students, and regular questionnaires demonstrated this. The additional student support that we put in place last year helped the students through this year somewhat. However, we know that these supports are not perfect, and we therefore need to consider better supports. In addition, we need to be clearer on what we expect from students. We need to define professionalism and the development of professional identity, develop better teaching and assessment methods on this, and develop better systems for remediation within the school, but also in conjunction with the Academic Standards and Quality Office in relation to all processes, whether it is within the Professional Behaviours Committee or across the university. Fourth, we need to launch the Academy of Clinical Leadership. Professor Mitchell had previously spoken about this, but as many things, COVID slowed this down. For those of you who don't know, the Academy aims to develop exceptional leaders and create high-quality healthcare systems. The Academy intends to bring together healthcare organisations, healthcare providers, consumers, and a number of experienced key ANU academic disciplines to demonstrate that strong clinical leadership and co-creation of health innovation can transform healthcare. Over the last few months, the medical school has partnered with the Research School of Management to develop a draft proposal for the respective college deans to seek financial support from the university for the establishment of the Academy. The aims of the Academy do align strategically with Transform, and if supported, will provide evidence-informed programs co-designed with healthcare practitioners and consumers to optimise leadership and excellence in healthcare in Australia. In addition to all of this, we need to be clear what 2021 will bring in terms of change for the university, the college, and our school. The Vice-Chancellor will give a State of the University address next week, and I highly recommend that you listen in. He will outline the university's plans for 2021 and the way forward for the strategic plan for ANU 2025. He has previously spoken about and described ANU's recovery plan. This is aimed at raising revenue as well as reducing expenses. The recovery plan is built on the financial health strategy, which needs to achieve an ongoing reduction in expenditure of $103 million each year for the next 3 years. That's correct, $103 million less for the next 3 years per year. Other incentives include raising revenue through research and educational activities, raising ANU's debt, and working with fund allocations through the Research Support Program for the 2021 federal budget, as was announced by government on the 6th of October last year. Recurrent funding was allocated for 2021 to all colleges and portfolios, and this was $33 million less than in 2020. You may have seen detailed recovery plans by some colleges out for consultation or finalised change plans. The plans vary across the colleges, but some colleges are reducing the size of the college through restructure and reduction of number of schools, reduction of number of roles and staff, and a focus on their strategic plans in research and education. Our college, unfortunately, could not meet its original expenditure target in 2020 due to the nature of the research operations and the high proportion of workforce that's funded externally. The 2021 funding, that's the recurrent funding allocation, as I said, is a further reduction to that of 2020, and it reflects additional savings that we have to make in 2021 while providing for the continued development of the college Transform strategy. To achieve the savings target, but also to focus the college's strengths and support of the vision of Transform, a recovery plan is being developed and will be out for consultation soon. You will have all seen the email by the General Manager of the college, Janelle Claudianis, giving us a new date of this plan to be out in March, so in about 6 weeks or so, as we were not able to be ready for consultation next week. It is likely that the plan will include a restructure of the college. Details of this are not finalised and they are not known to me. The Vice-Chancellor has spoken to the college exec on 2 occasions over the last few months. He's very supportive of the medical school, but he also reiterated that as a college, we should consider a different structure to support our functions better. I want to reassure you that when we know more, Professor Gruen will inform us. The school manager, Katrina Chappell, and I will hold staff meetings to explain the proposal in detail and answer all your questions. And I urge you to use the opportunity when it arises for feedback. I also want to reassure you that there is no plan to close the medical school. As you've seen, the medical school is part of Transform, and you would have heard Professor Gruen in his town hall and other meetings talk about his support for us. And as I said, the Vice-Chancellor is very supportive of the medical school. And whatever changes and challenges we will face next year, we will deal with them together as a community and as a school. We will continue to do what we are set up to do, to provide an environment that fosters excellence and creativity in future doctors, health professionals, and medical scientists. So I hope that I've been able to outline the year that was and give you a bit of an idea of what to expect from this year. I know there are a lot of uncertainties and concerns. However, we have managed to work as a team or teams, and I know that we will continue to do so this year. And you have my promise that I will continue to inform you and communicate all news to you, and will try to answer all questions to the best of my ability. And I'm happy to take questions now. Thank you.
There is no.
So if you have any questions, all you need to do is either pop a question into the Q&A, that's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, or just unmute yourself and ask a question. So there is first question from Wendy Diamond. Wendy, thanks for being brave, asking the first question. Have we had any indication when the budget will now be approved for 2021, given the delay in the change management plan? Wendy, that's a good question. I think Katrina Chappell will probably talk to us about the budget a bit more. We know what the budget for 2021 is for us, or rather the sum that we're allowed to spend. However, what the change management influence on the budget for the whole college is not yet known, because we haven't gone through a proposal for change management process. So we'll have to wait for that probably till after March or April this year. I hope that answers your question. Kirsty, thanks, Zsuzsoka. Good to hear the promise, further communication when more is known. Happy to oblige, Kirsty, happy to inform you. Simona, will exams be online this year? Oh, Simona, I don't know. So the all 4 years have exam chairs, and Professor David Kramer oversights all of them, and they will inform all students in time when the exams are. I would hope that the exams won't all have to be online, but it really depends on what COVID-19 is doing, what the vaccination strategy is for Australia and how successful it is. But Professor Kramer will inform you when time comes. Philip, some of our students have had trouble with their year 1-2 projects due to restrictions on access to ACT Health. This is causing some stress. I know they have a day a week from now on, but will there be consideration given to those delays if needed? Philip, I'm aware of that. That was particularly last year, understand that. However, last year's Year 2 students, in the end, all were able to go to either Plan B, which is write a research proposal, or they were actually allowed back on Canberra Health Services campus, particularly to access patient notes and whatever they needed. So I don't really see that as a problem for this year. I am meeting with the Executive Director of Medical Services and the Deputy CEO of Canberra Hospital regularly this year. And my particular concern is to discuss with them access of students to the Canberra Health Services, whether it's for clinical placements or it's to do their research. And when I know a bit more, I will let you know, but I don't really see too much of a problem at the moment. Okay, and somebody used the chat button for questions, I think. Am I there? Yep. So Charlie said, is there any official advice about when students might be eligible for COVID-19 vaccinations? After this point, can we expect a more face-to-face environment for teaching and learning? Telly, that is a fabulous question. We were talking with other deans of other medical schools about that today, and it seems that each state and territory has different views of where medical students fit in the categories. You may have seen there are different categories of order that vaccinations are being given out. So I just heard today that Victoria, for instance, have asked all medical schools in Victoria to name the students that will be placed in these high-risk areas, such as the emergency department and ICU, because they would then be automatically in the 1A, i.e. first cab off the rank category. And needless to say, the medical schools named all their clinical students. Whereas in New South Wales, it is quite likely that students under 1B category. I am liaising with ACT Health around this, and I hope that I can get an answer to that soon. The main problem will then also be, let's say students get vaccinated later than other health staff, whether students are allowed on clinical placements, but that is something that is not quite clear at the moment, but it's on my list to answer for you. Kirsty, again, is there any update on the ongoing negotiations with Canberra Health Services and ACT Health and the medical school about senior clinical academic roles, responsibilities, and employment arrangements? So, Kirsty, my understanding is that a group chaired by Professor Dahlstrom in 2019 with the Dean of the College and the CEO of Canberra Health Services has written a draft agreement. There were some things that still needed to be clearly defined, particularly around, research strong or educational strong clinicians, or research or educational supportive clinicians, and where they really fit in this. Given that COVID put a halt to that last year, this group has not met again yet. However, I've approached Canberra Health Service, and the Deputy CEO, Dave Peffer, and I, with the help of Josh Fear from the college, have taken it on to see whether we can move this agreement forward a bit by defining those things and just ironing out little details. And then we'll approach the CEO and the Dean of the college and see that we can finalise this document. I think this is urgent. It is, I think, urgent not just to really be clear on what the expectations are and the obligations, but also to somehow define the costs and the finances and who pays for what. And it is something that is on the 11-month to-do list, Kirsty. Okay, I've got two chats. One is from Andrew. Are we looking to increase student numbers as part of teaching income generation strategy? Andrew, that would be lovely. We are limited by the number of Commonwealth support places that we have. The number is 96, and everything additional will have to be international students. Our numbers are usually higher. That has nothing to do with us just admitting more students. but rather due to the fact that students take program leave or come in sideways, such as international students from Brunei or from the IMU. So there is at the moment no plan. It would be beneficial though to have more international students, and Sally Wheeler from the college, who is the International Affairs Deputy Vice Chancellor, I think, something like that, has spoken to us, and there is a group of countries that are really interested to send future students to us, which we're negotiating with them, which would help with income. There is that problem though, that the block in terms of teaching facilities, whether it be lecture halls, particularly our space for practicals, is limited, or PBLs and so on is limited, so we need to work out the details on how to do that. But at the moment, there's no plan to increase the numbers. Selena wants to know, as the budget for the ANU Medical School is reduced, how will this be reflected in the method of delivery for the medical school content? Selena, I think we're pretty smart last year around not just delivering a program online, but also being able to think of how we can do that a bit smarter with less teachers and so on. It worries me that the budget has been reduced because we do not want to give up what we're here to do, which is make future doctors, teach the students to become the future doctors. So we're working with particularly the clinical skills and the PBL leaders around how to do that. The quality really should not be affected by that. That is our top priority. And there are other areas that we can make savings. So travel finances will be much reduced. We've gone to, sorry everybody, long live milk in the fridges, to save a bit of money, and all kinds of supports that we have for internal scholarships or internal supports of kind of events have been reduced. We do not want to save on education. And Andrew wants to now know, what about more onto the Bachelor of Health Science or new undergrad, postgrad pathways? I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there, Andrew. Must be about the increased student numbers. I think the Bachelor of Health Science course is also limited, and the undergrad, which is our undergrad pathway, we don't have many more postgraduate pathways or postgraduate courses. The MCHAM would be one of them, which has an increased number last year, but still it's only 15 students, so there's only so much we can do. And as you may know, the issue is that the cost to run this medical school, to teach students, is covered by a lot of volunteers from New South Wales Health and from the ACT. We pay very, very few students, and it's really hard to ask more volunteers to do more for more students. Ricardo wants to know whether I got a good break. Ricardo, I didn't have a break. I was working the NICU over Christmas and a bit of New Year, and have been going on since then. And the picture behind me is from last September, but thanks for the question. He said, secondly, when we're likely to see the change report, how long will we have to respond, and will the medical school be looking at putting in individual or united response? Yeah. So my understanding from Janelle's email is that the change report, with a consultation period of, I think it'll be 2 weeks or so, will be coming out in March, as I said. The consultation period is roughly around 2 weeks, will then be collated and brought back together. I would highly recommend that everybody puts in their individual response, but I also would think, because we work in excellent teams, that let's say the medical school exec or the education committee will put in a collated response in regards to what affects them, whether it's the executive strategic functions or whether it's the education research functions. Andrew says, thanks for the virtual face-to-face, reassuring, informative. You're very welcome. Another Q&A. No. Arvind, the smaller classes for phase 1 face-to-face clinical skills has been really conducive to more personalised teaching of students. Would the medical school consider continuing to deliver teaching in smaller class sizes? Absolutely, Arvind. This is not just a choice, but also a requirement. As you know, there are square meterage requirements, how many people can be in a room and how close they can be to each other. So we'll have to continue to have smaller groups per PBL, CBL, and particularly the clinical skills. I'm trying to work out at the moment what the requirements are around face masks for clinical skills here in Building 4. I think this will not be necessary. Remember, the ACT is very safe. Everybody has to use the app. We're screening students. I think the risk is more to the volunteer patients. I think a bit of information that I hadn't really talked about yet, but that affects clinical skills is, as you know, we have clinical skills and teaching facilities at Calvary Hospital in Bruce. Given that the ACT is looking at having a vaccination clinic, the decision by ACT Health has been made that the best space, or a good space rather, to have this vaccination clinic will be at Calvary Hospital. The screening and so on is in the south, and there should be a separation between screening and vaccination. So we've been approached as a medical school whether we're happy to make these spaces available for the vaccination clinic, and we're in negotiation at the moment to nail that down. I think it is very possible for us to give up those spaces. I think it is important. Vaccination clinic, I think, trumps the clinical skills spaces there. And remember, we now have new clinical skills teaching spaces here in Building 4 downstairs in a part that used to be half of the library. So I'll send out more communication around that. It is particularly important for students at Calvary that they still have some ability to use Zoom for lectures, small work groups, have a tea room and so on. So we're negotiating with Calvary on where they can be provided if it's not in the current ANU facilities there. Right, I can't see any more questions. Anybody want to type anything or ask a question? No, nothing? Well, I might just thank you all for attending. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or give me a ring or something. As I said, there will be the Vice-Chancellor's address next week. Highly recommend to tune in, because that might give us more of an idea, or give you more of an idea of what's happening across the whole of university. Whatever happens in the college will be communicated through the college manager and the college dean. I have been advised by the medical school exec for this year, given that this is a year of change, to have more all school faculty meetings, and I'm planning to do 4 this year rather than the usual 2. And we might separate them into professional staff and academic meetings, depending what the topic is. But I'm planning to have lots of these meetings, even if it's just a 10 minutes update, with the opportunity for all of you to ask questions. And I hope that that's convenient. I will also continue to send out emails. We'll restart the newsletter again in a few weeks or so, I think next week. And then if you're so inclined, you can hear news via the video as well. I hope you all have a good evening. Thanks for tuning in. Send me an email if you have any questions, and I will speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.